Who you are is defined partially by the habits that you feed. What I mean by that is, when you do good things, you get better at doing those good things. When you do bad things, you get better at doing those bad things. Good habits lend to other good habits. Poor decisions can lead to other poor decisions. Make sure that you're feeding the right parts of yourself, but also make sure that you're being forgiving of yourself for those moments when you maybe didn't make the right choice. This is just one of the many lessons that you can learn working in the studio. Welcome to my studio. Before we even get started, let me point out, you will need colored pencils for this. This is not a negotiable. You need to have colored pencils, and you need to have a ruler. If you don't have a ruler and colored pencils, this assignment cannot be completed. I bought this here 12-pack at Walmart for $1.20. These videos are designed for you to work on your artwork while watching the video. If there's a section that I'm going too fast on, press the pause button. Get caught up, and then continue the video. Work along with the video, and you'll never get a step wrong. All right, my artists, today, take your ruler, and you're going to divide the page in half. While we're making our project today, I want you to keep in mind that there will be 3 rules that will help you to show these letters in this 3-dimensional look. Rule number 1, always pull the lines towards yourself. And I'm going to do a medium line. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure I pull towards myself. I made sure that I lined up on the first notch and on the second notch, and I pulled towards myself. Always pull towards yourself. Never push away. Pull towards yourself. Okay, so I got this nice line dividing top from the bottom. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to create some letters. Now you can have these letters be whatever you want them to do. In my case, I'm just going to do a Mr. and a Morris on the bottom. What I'm going to tell you is I do want to see that you do at least something on the top and something on the bottom. The larger you work, the easier this will be. I'm going to say that again. The larger you work, the easier this will be. You may want to test out what I'm about to show you on a scrap piece of paper before putting it on your final artwork. In order to make a bubble letter, or in other words, normally we draw a letter, we draw it as this. We do like, there's my letter R. To do a bubble letter, what we can do is we draw the letter R, and then we just go around it. Like that. If you have an eraser, yes, this is one of those times where I'm going to say, break out the eraser. You can erase the original R, and there you go. You got a nice quick bubble letter. However, in this case, I want to be doing something a little bit fancier. So what I'm going to do instead today is I'm going to do the following. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to make it a block letter. It's a little bit different than a bubble. Here's how. A bubble letter is a soft shape. A block letter is a hard shape. Now, I've been practicing doing these for a long time, so for me to do a block letter, it's not too difficult. If this is new to you, then I want you to try doing it this way. I drew in my R very lightly. I'm going to make a flat line, go straight up, flat line, back up. Yes, I still am going to do a curve here for the R. And I'm going to do a flat line here. If I want to use the ruler for this, that's fine. You can use the ruler if you want. If you want to make sure that your letters are in a nice row, you can totally do that. That's entirely up to you. Again, I'm going to use my eraser. I'm going to erase the inside of that. So next, I'm going to go into the bottom section of my page. And this time I drew this M and R kind of medium size. I want to do nice big letters on the bottom. You could take as much or as little time with how you do these letters as you want, but I will say they do need to have those hard edges. My O, obviously, is not going to have hard edges. And you know what, just for some decoration, because I've got the Morris filling up the bottom, the top doesn't feel as balanced, does it? If I look at these two sides, they don't look, one looks heavy, the other one looks light. So I want to try to balance it out. So I'm just going to draw some shapes. Next, I'm going to select a point somewhere on this line. We're going to call this line our horizon line. We'll get to why we're calling it that on a future lesson. But for right now, let's say that this line is our horizon line, and I want to pick one point. We're going to call that our vanishing point. So horizon line, vanishing point. That vanishing point could be wherever you want to put it for today. Rule 2 with perspective. All corners go to the same vanishing point. Just like in our texture block exercise, we're going to draw from the corner of an object all the way to that vanishing point. Just like that. Rule 3 while you're doing this, don't draw on the letters. If you remember on our last lesson with those blocks, we could not pass over an object. If we passed over, it made it transparent. We're not doing transparent on this one. So I'm going to drag this one down. That comes really close to the edge of that M. In fact, it actually completed the line there for the M. I'm going to start this one, but it stops when you get to the letter, like that. I'm going to go right here to the bottom of the M. Stops, because we can't cross over the letter. Curved surfaces are a little bit tougher, but I want to show you how this works. If I went here, I go over top of the letter. So I turn this. If I went here, I'd still be going over the edge. If I go from my vanishing point right to the edge of that circled area and pull down, that's where I want it to be. I'll show you again on the circle. Go right to the edge where I'm not cutting across the object. Same thing here. Make sure your lines are all going to that vanishing point. If they start going over here or over here, the illusion's not going to work. Pretty cool effect, isn't it? All right, so I'm flipping this upside down because, well, I want to pull the lines towards myself. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to get Morris, so it's also going to that point. All right, so there we have it, the very first part of what we're going to be doing today. Coloring. Two terms I want you to know. One is going to be called grading. And grading is when I fill in an area with a color, but I don't press down as hard as I could press down. In fact, by varying my pressure, I can even give it the look like it has light and dark areas. Saturating, on the other hand, means that I'm going to saturate it with color. I'm going to fill it completely with color. This is the one that's going to make your hand hurt. It's going to burn through your pencil super quick. You're going to press down super hard as you color in and fill the area. So pressing down and filling is called saturating, and lightly pressing down is going to be called grading. Sometimes with that technique, grading, we can also call that shading. Just kind of depends on how you're using it. As I get things set up, I want you to keep in mind a couple things. One, you are going to be coloring in this entire image. And two, you are going to be doing it in a nice way. What I mean by that is no scribbling. Scribbling and shading and grading and all those other terms, they're all different. Scribbling does have a time and place in art, but it is not on this project. Take your time. Little circles overlapping each other, that's going to be how we fill everything in with color. The first step we're going to do today is we are going to outline all of our letters. You can outline these with a pen or a Sharpie. I didn't have a pen or Sharpie with me, so I just used my black colored pencil. Now it's time to pick your favorite color. Make sure it's a primary or secondary color. I'm going to pick my favorite color. I'm going to make sure it's a primary or a secondary color. Here I have blue. I'm going to use blue to fully saturate in the letters, and in this case the shapes around these letters. So I'm pressing down as hard as I can. I'm filling the space. I might have to even revisit this. I'm covering all the white, and I'm making sure that the color is as intense or as rich as I can. You will notice that that blue is very dark on that square. That's exactly what you are going to be doing. Please note that I only outlined and colored in the symbols above my horizon line, not below it. Whatever color you picked last time, now you're picking a color that will be analogous to the color you first picked. Analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Here I have arranged my pencils like the color wheel. I used blue last time, so green and purple will be the colors that are analogous to blue. I'm going to pick one or the other, in this case purple, and that's what I'm using for this next part. Last time we saturated, this time we're going to be grading. So before we filled it in completely, now we're grading. We're doing it lightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my letters, and you're going to see that I have an underside to each shape and I have a side to each shape. I'm going to go ahead and make my sides lighter, and I'm going to make my bottoms darker. But in either case, I'm going to grade them. Now I'm going to zoom in and slow this down so that you can see how I'm coloring. As I'm coloring, if you look carefully, I'm actually not just going back and forth and back and forth. I'm making tiny circles. Those tiny circles, or ovals I should say, are overlapping each other. As I'm doing this, I'm paying attention to how hard I'm pressing on the pencil. I'm essentially shading right now. I'm filling in the area, but I'm taking my time. I'm looking to make sure that I'm not making an area darker or keeping an area too light. And if I see that, then I'm going to go over top and I'm going to vary my pressure again. Now that I've practiced doing the sides in lightly, I'm going to do the bottoms in darkly. Is that even a word, darkly? I'm going to be doing the bottoms so that they are darker than the sides were. In other words, I'm saturating the bottoms just a little bit more than I did the side. I'm still not fully saturating it, but I'm just pressing down a little harder. I'll look over my image and see if there's any areas that I need to darken a little bit more or make it more even. I'm going to do this periodically throughout the entire piece. Just keep on looking at areas where I want to darken or lighten them. Our third color will be another analogous color to what your first one was. Let me explain. My first color was blue, and an analogous color or next to it on the color wheel is purple. The other color that was next to it on the color wheel, which would also be analogous, is green. I haven't used green yet, so now I know that's the one I'm going to go after. Using your new color, you're going to break up the background. Let me show you what that means. I have a lot of negative space, or space that's behind my letters and my shapes. So I'm going to use the pencil to kind of break up that area. I'm just going to draw in some basic shapes. Maybe this will look like a cityscape. You can do whatever works for you, but you want to kind of break your background that's above the horizon line into two sections. Next, you're going to grade or shade in above your horizon area using that pencil. So I'm going to go above the building-like shapes that I have here, and I'm going to do this lightly. Again, little circles overlapping, and I'm just going to fill in this area. When you're filling in or shading an area like this, you want to really pay attention to the direction that your pencil's going. The direction matters. The difference between something looking like you colored it versus scribbled all has to do with the direction that you have your pencil go. I like to just kind of go in these rows that are basically formed with those circles. You may do it a different way, but try to keep it as consistent or the same as you go along. Using the same color, now you're going to saturate down to the horizon line. So this city shape that I have made on the bottom, I'm now going to take my green colored pencil and I'm going to saturate it or press down very hard. Sometimes when I'm pressing down hard, I like to kind of line the outside so that I don't accidentally scribble out of that area. If you do scribble out of the area, it's okay. You can kind of extend your shapes and cover up your scribble. Take your time with this. Push down hard. Okay, make it as even as you can. Now that the top half of my page is all done, I want to look it over and see, are there areas that I can color in better? Are there areas that I can color in more consistently? I'm looking and I'm seeing a lot of white in the areas where I saturated, and I'm seeing a lot of white in the areas of that dark green. So I'm going to take my time and go back over areas, saturate in, even out colors, play around with it. This is part of your craftsmanship with artwork, is you don't just do it once, you look it over and see what else can you do? What else can you add? And can you enhance or improve any areas that you've already done? Now we're going to find the complementary color to the first color that you chose. Let me show you what I mean. Here I have these pencils arranged as the color wheel again. If you remember, I picked blue as my main color. If I look at the color across from it on the color wheel, I'm going to see orange. So orange is going to be my new color. I'm going to pick that one up, get started up. Now I'm going to use the orange to fully saturate the letters on the bottom now, just like I did on the ones on the top. One thing I am going to do though, is I'm going to show you another technique. This is an optional technique. If you're wanting a little bit more of a challenge and to learn a new technique here, then follow along. And if not, then just skip it and you're just saturating your letters in completely with that new color. For that extra challenge though, if you look, I haven't fully colored in my letters. I purposely left the tops kind of unfinished, and I'm going to show you what you can do with that in just a moment. Again, this next part is optional. I'm going to go through the tops of these, and I'm going to fill them in, but I'm not going to saturate it. So I'm going to lightly put my orange in. I might not even run the orange all the way to the top of the shape. I'm going to show you a cool effect after we pick out our next color. Next step, find a color that is analogous to the last one you used. I used orange this last time, and if I look on my color wheel again, to the sides of orange, I have yellow, which was the opposite of the purple, and I also have red. I'm going to pick the yellow. Next, you're going to grade the letters. In other words, I'm going to take that yellow pencil, and if I look, I'm going to look on the tops of my shapes. This time, I want to make sure I'm coloring dark on the sides, and I'm going to color lightly on the tops. I'm going to go all the way down through like that. Before I show you that though, for that extra technique I was just telling you, I'm going to take my yellow pencil and I'm going to fill in over top of any of the white area left on the front of that letter, and also over top of the area that I graded with the orange. So I'm overlapping the yellow with the orange. It's going to create a really cool effect. It really doesn't matter what color you chose for your bottom letter. Whatever the complementary color is, it's going to give you a really cool effect if you blend those two together. Blending is a whole new technique, but again, if you want a little bit more of a challenge, give it a try. Just about wrapped up. I'm going to look it over, see if there's any areas I want to fill back in. I'm even going to use this orange. It's just a way to kind of darken some of the sides. You don't have to do that. Again, optional. Let's go on to the next part. Next, we're going to choose our final color, and we're going to break up the background. Going back to our color wheel again, I had orange as my first color that I used. I then used yellow because it was analogous to it. So now I'm going to go to the other color that was analogous to it, which is red, which also is complementary to the background color of green. Just like before, I'm going to break up the background by separating it into two separate shapes. Once I have that separated, I'm going to fully saturate the area that's closest to the horizon line, and I'm going to lightly saturate the area that's further away from the horizon line. When I'm coloring in a large area, I really have to pay attention to my craftsmanship, to the pressure I'm putting onto my pencil, and to the direction of my overlapping circles. I want to make sure that I'm putting these in a way that's going to look interesting to the viewer, but also not detract from the piece. For my final step, again, it's all about craftsmanship. It's about how I finish this up. I'm going to look for areas like the center of this O, I forgot to color it in. Or if you look, I have a lot of areas that look pretty grainy. The camera is not helping me on that front, but I'm going to start coloring in, filling things in, making this look like it's finished and polished and a nice piece of artwork. That about wraps things up. I cannot wait to see your final artworks. Make sure to follow our guidelines with how to photograph them before submitting them. That'll get you extra points, but it also just helps with the presentation of your artwork. Be proud of what you did, because I am. Have a great day.